Okay, so this is a video I've wanted to do for a while, which is how do you quickly generate multiple ideas for an AP portfolio if you're already a professional artist, or you just aren't going to wait for permission to create a series of artworks. Perhaps you are super interested in, how does an artist come up with the blue period for Picasso, for example, or um, a series of water studies for somebody who wants to do a painting of water, which is what I did in 2005. Um, and I was looking for what's the most practical way to do it. And one of the things that I have done with some of my previous AP students, that I want to start the year getting them focused and the feeling of knowing what your inquiry is. It should not feel like it's locking you down. It should not feel like you're trapped in this idea of what you thought you might want to do at the beginning. But this is a really elegant solution for me. This is what I tried to use. And I'm going to show you in as short a video as I can. So I guess I get right to it because your time is valuable. All right, so a little background. This is me trying to figure out for an art class I teach on the weekends locally, just on mandalas and Carl Jung. Carl Jung is fun to connect with surrealism because the surrealists would create these games to access your subconscious. And really quick, and it's not totally related, but the theory is that the center of the mandalas is your core self, and as you get farther out you get ego, and as you get farther out you get your external persona, the masks that we all develop as diplomats to go and face the world, so that our deeper true self doesn't have to deal with all the mess. And then you come up with your more deep desires, your sexuality, all of these things in the outer edges. Won't get into that, but this is sort of the context. This is what I was thinking about. And then, as I was playing with this, my friend got this job where she's doing SEO and web design and strategy for a company that does horoscopes. And it's well beyond horoscopes, actually. It's a system that tells you what is your astrological background. And I don't know if you believe in that sort of thing, but I find it interesting because, as much as the science of today is the way to be right and the way to be correct, but let's face it, if you look at the science of 100 years ago, we kind of laugh at that. And if you look at like battlefield medicine practices from the Civil War in the United States, we consider that barbaric. So truth doesn't age well. And what I like about systems like astrology is it's a fun way of accounting for things that are not covered in most of the ways that we look at the world. So whatever your views on astrology, it's definitely something that is worthwhile and a legitimate target for an art inquiry. So this was like, okay, when she told me like she was doing this, and we did my chart. Let's see if I can find that quickly. I did my chart, and it shows me the major arcana cards, and it's the moon and the empress and the hanged man and the lovers and the tower, and this supposedly shows my destiny and my struggle. And what's weird, it kind of fits. Now, of course, all of these things, who knows what just the day that you're born can tell us, but it's fun. So the idea, as I was thinking about this, is, how do you develop a quick art series based on this? So what I did was I started reinterpreting the art cards. And, sorry, not the art cards. These are called the major arcana, and within the tarot, again, I'm not pushing the tarot. It's just a source of something to do a sustained project of artistic inquiry, something that advanced placement, A-Levels, or if you're doing a portfolio because you want to go to one of the top art schools, where do you get the deep substance so that you can, on one hand, show them that you can do both charcoal and pastels and push your drawing or whatever is the thing that's hardest for you. How do you make sure that you have a through line that's rich enough but specific enough to do a really cool series? Or if you're like, a real artist already, not that you're not a real artist if you're not, but I mean, if your money is dependent on you staying properly, lucratively occupied, how does one structure an artistic thread of inquiry? So here's what I like to do. Now, obviously, most of my stuff ends up coming back to the sketchbooks, so we have a fresh sketchbook. All right, so the thumbnail drawing is my favorite toy, and I'm going to make it the size and shape of a tarot card. So I'm going to make some of these, and you'll notice they're not big. These are just large postage stamp sizes, and I'm going to leave this page free for, we'll see what ideas I need. Maybe I need a larger rectangle to explore later. All right, so what are the elements? According to all of this with my chart, I'm going to make some mesh space here. So this here, interior, is my mesh space. So I've got the Hermit, and that's my 9 up here. So I'll look at the Hermit card, which is this guy holding a lantern in the darkness. I can do way better than that. But first I have to figure out what are the themes, and I can identify interesting images based on that. All right, 19. Totally forget what that's the sun. The sun, so that's 19, and the Hermit is 9. Sorry, this cold. I've got a kid, and he brings home every cold in Spain, and I get them all. All right, so 9, let's see, 18, somewhere in that's where the overlap between my career and my love line. That's got to be important. I got to figure that one out. So let's put the moon, plus the moon's cool. All right, and then we've got, what are the numbers that show up? 3, Empress, deal with that later. 6 is the lovers. And some weird intersection, my love and my work have a lot of crossover. So that's 6 and 7. What was 7? Don't remember. Figure it out later. This is an example. So I made some sketches here. So here was my mandala, and I was like, well, how do I take this mandala thing that I'm doing? Carl Jung totally fits with archetypes. That's the basis of his whole theory, and that works surprisingly well. So now we're talking about something that Jung is fairly accepted, at least if you want to call it a social science. Is it a hard science? I'd say with functional MRI machines where you can literally see brain activity, we're getting close. But whatever your opinions are on that doesn't matter to the point of this inquiry, which is Jung is good enough. Now we're tying it to something a little more established. All right, so I'm keeping the sort of mystical, really fun thing that brings people in when they're like, I have X number of things to do here in the office today, or the papers that I have due, or the reading I'm supposed to do for class, or I have a test this Friday. And what do? We try to find something more fun. Scroll, whatever, but the old-fashioned way is to read your horoscope and kind of engage in that kind of thing. So it's got the fun, mystical side, and then we've got more serious Carl Jung, and then a tie-in to the surrealists, which is going to be really useful, especially if you're doing an AP or an A-Levels. All right, talk. Let's draw. All right, so when I created these, I took different elements. So the Hermit is usually shown as somebody who's very isolated, but for me, to update it, I like poetry. I spend a lot of time at this desk doing artistic things, trying to dig into deeper inquiries, like the series I'm working on 2 other series, one about the alien nature of sunflowers before they open, which is just aesthetically interesting to me, and then plus the chaos of leaves and how do you arrange things, sort of the way Gustav Klimt would in his tree paintings. a real sense of order, and then break the order at the same time. How do we do this? Well, that's interesting to me. So, by the way, though, that's also super interesting to people who are grading your AP and A-level things and deciding who gets in. If you show that you can do proper visual thinking and sustained visual inquiry across multiple works in your portfolio, that's going to count. They're going to notice that. All right, so for me, I updated this guy. He's the poet. He's sitting at a desk, and I put Lorca and Oliver, Mary Oliver, and Robert Hass, just three of my favorite poets off the top of my head, on the front of the desk to indicate poetry, and he's working in a manuscript, and it's just fun to, can I, from my head, imagine and draw his feet properly, and I can elaborate this later. So I've updated the image from the tarot card. I'm going to slowly develop that into something that's truly more connected with both my interpretation of my chart and this series of images that are going to end up being like tarot cards. And it'd be kind of fun if I can find a way to include the viewer in that by creating a game of sorts. I think it would be really clever to send all of the contents properly of my AP portfolio, hitting the breadth. I've got drawing, I've got ink, I've got painting, I've got painting with pastels, I've got the breadth showing that I can work in several different media, watercolor, mixed media, just a little something definitely digital these days. But if I were going to do my own AP portfolio, I would do most of my digital media based on, or at least including some captured physical media that I made, because that shows mastery. That really tells, you don't want to just get into the best school. You probably want to get into the right school. So in a sense, creating a more authentic portfolio becomes not just a way to get access. Sometimes if you get, everybody says yes, that means that you're also possibly going to go to a school that might not be the best experience for you. Whereas if you go to a school where the teachers who are looking at these portfolios say, hey, I can work with that kid, I see what they're doing, I'm interested in that, then the day you get to school, you've got at least one or two people in the review committee who have a stake in your success, and that's super powerful. So don't just think about getting into the best school, also consider what might be the qualities of the right school. Okay, so the Hierophant is the teacher, so I'm going to make it more Socratic, and you can see here in the Greek tradition, the teacher would sit on like a platform and kind of like a throne, and the students rather, would stand around outside in a ring and memorize, take notes, probably not on tablets, so probably mostly memory palace systems, and I'm sure there were many variations of that kind of memory system being used at the time. The Chariot, I decided to talk about, I like physics and stuff, so in a way, time is what carries us, so the Chariot is time in my conception so far. I may find out later that that's a terrible idea, and I may just ditch it. But for now, I'm going to take the Riddle of the Sphinx, and I'm going to take 3, 6, and 9, which are mystical numbers, and I'm going to make it into a clock. And so this is just enough information in this drawing to remind me for later. Okay, so these are my first, and then there's the Lovers, and I wanted to update it and make it a little less God and a little bit more mystical, because why not? It just feels more modern. And then playing with sexuality symbols here, and seeing, weirdly, I seem to have reinvented the fleur-de-lis. Wow, that's interesting. Anyway, I've got whatever, doesn't matter. That's going too deep. So, how does one do it? You start by having some kind of an excuse, something you're interested in, tangential. You find deeper connections to other bodies of knowledge, other sciences. This is psychology through Freud, and then I'm not touching the Indian aspect of the Festival of Lights or anything like that, but this is just simply using the mandala as a psychological tool. So I'm going to be real specific in my head. And if I want to research Diwali and really get a rich, but that's a big commitment for my inquiry. Right now, I'm just trying to find my way forward. I'm going to make one for each of the cards. And as I go through, I'm going to think, well, the lovers is cool, but I use the lovers both as, in my relationships and what kind of family life I want and what kind of marriage I'd want and those things. But it's also going to be my work. So I'm going to need one here that's going to be, I guess I should put 6 because that's the lovers. And then I'm going to put 6B because this one's going to be maybe 6 for business. What does it look like to be passionate about that? So I'll have the lovers here. And you'll notice they're holding hands. They got one other hand extended out, sort of tentative, gives a little bit of tension. Then you've got the winged angel or whatever. I might turn it into a bird or some animal spirit. I'm not really sure. Anyway, so I'm just put in some wings. I'm going to darken the figures a little bit so that we can clearly differentiate the foreground and the background. Have I recorded enough information to remember later? And that's the question I have to ask myself every time. If you do this much abstraction, you're boiling it down to such a small amount. The danger is that you get it done quickly, and then next time you come back, you're like, what? And you have no idea what you meant. Happens all the time. So you just have to ask yourself, have I captured it? And good enough. All right. Lovers B, what does it look like to have a passionate pursuit of knowledge? Well, the easiest simple thing, and I'm going to go with the easiest simple thing. I'll develop each one more later. What I want to do is go from boom, 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 boom. I want 24 works of art, or at least 12, and then do 2 variations. And I want to have very quickly an idea of an entire arc of inquiry so that in 1 hour, I can create a prototype portfolio. And for those of you who kind of already get it, you can jump in, turn off the video. I'm not supposed to do that. Like and subscribe and blah, blah, blah. If you're ready to work, get to work. If not, I'm going to go through and give more specifics of how to fill this stuff out. But the idea is you create prototypes. This is what they do with web design. This is what they do with app design. This is what they do with product design. You create the fastest minimum viable prototype, MVP, the minimum viable prototype to carry your idea into something that at least shows the proof of concept and hopefully functions a little bit. All right, so back to work. Those of you who are moving on and getting to your own work, best of luck. Awesome. Thank you for stopping by. The rest of us, let's get to specifics. So I have to come up with some. I'm just going to go for passionate. I remember there's this photo for the Vietnam War protests. It was super foreshortened. He had his fingers were close to the camera, and he was so passionately upset. And I think that they tear gassed at that point. So this wasn't happy. And so of course I'm saying happy, and I draw a happy expression. That happens. You got to be careful of your thoughts when the pencil is moving because it will record them. All right, so again, quality is not my issue here. I am definitely okay with garbage drawings as long as I capture the ideas in some visual form. Now, because I like Greco-Roman stuff, and that's a fun thing, a fun dimension for me to add, I'm going to add pathos, which is the passion version in, what's it called? I'll come back to it. But public speaking, when rhetoric, that's what it is. One of the ethos, pathos was character and passion and thinking, logos. But these are the ways how we persuade people. And so I'm going to keep that Greco-Roman theme. So I might as well write that down. I'm just going to write Greco because I can't think Greco without thinking Roman. So my themes, Greco, poetry, I probably want some Renaissance. And that, now that I've said that, now what I've got is, okay, now I can add in something about Leonardo da Vinci's notebooks, and just by having sepia ink be one of the groups of work that I create in my breadth category, I could do some of the studies for these final paintings. Just do it in sepia ink and copy his hatching style, sort of cross over Michelangelo, who also has a beautiful cross hatching style. So I'll just put in Da Vinci, Mike for Michelangelo, sepia, hatching. Okay, so now I've got some style points from the Renaissance. What else have I done so far? Mythology. So myth is the hook. So what's going to draw them in is the fun part. This should feel like something that's fun to do when you're procrastinating, but also have the meat of an essay, because as we develop this, if we decide this is a good prototype, we want it to endure. So we've got all these levels and layers, and I'm only on my second drawing. I don't know how many minutes that we're at here, but I've got 2 works ready to go. Wow, that's cool. I can get to work tomorrow and have 2 prototype drawings for my portfolio, leaving only 22 to go. And if this is my first day of class for advanced placement in September, I got all year still, and I've already got my first 2 works planned. All right, let's go for number 3. All right, so let's see. This one is the lovers, 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 and I guess we'll do the Roman numeral because that's how all the major arcana are done. All right, let's pick 5, and that's the Hermit. And just for brevity, because your time is valuable, I've already done it here. So I'm just going to put it here. Some nice sweepy pages, gives it a little bit of drama. Foreshortened book, sort of old school binding. Make it look like a tome. Make it look like something that monks who value every sheet of paper and make it by hand, something beautiful, like an illustrated manuscript. And then we have the desk. All right. And I'm going to put Neruda, because I wanted to put Neruda there before, and Neruda didn't fit. All right. So there's my poet, and then I'll do the legs later. And maybe I'll make a little star, and then the star. See, June 2025, sketchbook, center, because it's near the middle of the book. Centerfold. Close enough. Next to mandalas. So I'm going to make the connected idea of mandalas. All right. So now let's see. I've got the Hierophant. So I've got the Hierophant sitting there, telling people what's up, being Greek style teacherly. Not really my style, but sometimes I like to lecture. And certainly YouTube don't have the option of interaction the way that I do in the classroom, which is, I gotta say, it's still pretty weird. But we'll put them on a platform, and then let's obstruct with the shadowy students. And now, actually, I kind of like this. The idea of shadowy students, I mean, it tells you who the main character is. And then I'll put in a few who are not in silhouette. And then I'll put the platform here. Back edge of the platform. And we'll sort of put in a background. Alright, so super fast I have created, I guess this is the Hierophant. It says 5. I don't know if that's correct. I thought 5 was the Hermit. Oh, yeah, 5's the Hierophant. And 5's the Hermit. No, 5 is the Hierophant, the teacher, which is why it's oddly at the center of my chart. And I've been a teacher my whole career, and I can't seem to stop telling people things I think are interesting. So maybe that's me. So I got to figure out what the Hermit is. Hermit is 9. So I'm going to turn that, 9, 9. I'll get an eraser later. Doesn't matter. And so this is the Hierophant. That's 5. All right. The Chariot. All right, so let's pretend I've just done these two. That way I don't have to, spend a lot of time. Then over here, now I start combining it. How do I put these symbols and ideas into visual shapes that load up my core self? Obviously, that's the Hermit. The Hierophant is part of my external, the way that I present myself in the world, kind of whether I want to or not. Sorry. The other ones, maybe they become, okay, now we're cooking with gas. So I've got a couple of different variations. Maybe I'll put more circular shapes in this one to show the softness. Maybe lots of arrows for the transmission. But let's face it, I like conversation, so there's arrows in and out, because I don't want to be the kind of teacher who doesn't listen. Like, that's annoying. That's called being bossy, which doesn't really help much. So unless you're trying to get a group of people to do something, I don't want to be bossy. So I want to be interactive. I want to develop ideas and synthesize, not just push stuff out. So, as you're working on that, think of that. What is your true nature? What kinds of things? Literally, this is silly to have arrows going in and out, but it is really solidly descriptive. And later, if I put in the time, I go to a museum, I look at some master artists in different media and different times, ideas will come. But you have to record them, and then that becomes the next 20 pages. I put this in the middle because I didn't want them, it's kind of windy. I didn't want everything flipping around, but this should be the front of your inquiry. You use an entire sketchbook to explore tangents, colors, maybe even go into Diwali and the Festival of Lights, or get into the traditions of, I think Tibet has them, definitely the Buddhist monks have them. There's so many different ways that these traditions emerge in different cultures. You could spend your whole career doing just the project we've got started so far. Okay, so hopefully you get an idea within just a short amount of time, a couple of class periods, I can fill in all 12 of these. Then things will continue to occur to you as you go down these other rabbit holes. Suddenly you'll have 100, and that's where you want to be. You want to be at the spot where you can pick the 24 or so best images, best ideas, best visual ideas, and then choose 12 that truly benchmark and tell that story. So going from thumbnail to completed works to looking at your work as a whole on one of pages like this, where you've got a representation, you can do it on a screen. It's much easier. I think it's really important to practice your skills and truly understand your visual ideas by making it go through your hand. It literally processes in different parts of your brain. You're literally activating different ways of thinking and different parts of yourself that have different relationships with your own subconscious mind. Being an artist is about milking your intuition and developing ideas, allowing those processes. You go to sleep at night, you wake up the next morning with a fresh view, a new angle. Things get synthesized during the night, and you realize what might be the next step. And we get stuck so often because we're working too hard. And if you create a process like this, something you can trust, something that you made for your purposes, innovate that process. You don't have to stick to just one. I really recommend developing multiple processes and playing with process when you have to write an essay. It's basically like cooking recipes. And you discover how you like to work. and you can challenge the things that you're not great at by doing the things that you don't love to do, and creating games to make those more fun. And suddenly you find that the thing that you hated becomes something that's awesome. Anyway, hope you got something out of this. I hope a lot of you have already disappeared and aren't listening to me talk right now, because you are making boxes in your sketchbook or on a big sheet of paper, and you are creating your very first thumbnail gallery for your first deliberate series of artworks. Anyway, thanks for joining me. Take care.